Welcome to the Via Stoica podcast, your path to tranquility. This is the podcast on Stoicism, brought to you by viastoica.com, where we discuss this ancient philosophy of living the good life. Hosted by Bryce, Brendan, and Benny, we are here to help you apply Stoic wisdom to your everyday life. No matter what obstacles you're facing, whether it's work stress, relationship issues, or just the general ups and downs of life, Stoicism has something to offer us all. We got a special guest today, don't we, Brendan?
Yeah, we actually we ended up bumping into each other on Twitter, on X. He's a Stoic writer, an e-commerce expert, and father, husband, and all-around great guy. Phil, welcome to the podcast. It's great to have you here.
Wow, all-around great guy. Thanks, I appreciate that. I'm excited to be here. I like to call myself a perpetual work in progress, but I appreciate the compliment. Thanks. I'm excited to talk to you guys. We've had a chance to get to know each other a little bit over the past few weeks, and it's been a lot of fun talking about Stoicism with you.
Yeah, no, that's good. That perpetual work in progress. I mean, that's what we're all about here at Via Stoica. Is constantly working on ourselves, constantly improving, and it's great to do it in community with one another. It's great to talk about it. So that's what we want to get into today. Showcase your journey, how you've grown over the years, how you discovered Stoicism, and then also just what you kind of are working on as far as writing and things like that. But to kick it off, if you could just kind of give us an overview of who Phil is, where you're from, your journey from start to today.
Well, that's a lot of years. I don't know if I'll go from being born to this moment in my office, but I grew up in rural Nevada, in a gold mining community. Went to college in Utah. I got a degree in creative writing. So writing and creative output has always been a fond hobby of mine. I was a newspaper reporter for a little while when I got out of college. Soon after that, I got involved in political campaign management. That's where I learned a lot of the stuff I do with Photoshop and e-commerce. Then I spent about 15 years working at digital marketing agencies in the Cleveland area. And most recently, I launched an e-commerce company in my basement. It ended up doing pretty well and allowed me to have the freedom to pursue other things that are important to me. And one of those is Stoicism. I haven't known about Stoicism for very long. It's only been a few years that I've been reading about it and learning about it. But in that time, it's helped my life massively. And in the course of trying to teach myself more about Stoicism and learn more about how to apply it to my life, I did a lot of writing, note-taking, journaling about what these ancient Stoic philosophers were recommending for living a happy life. And from that journaling, I've produced a few books that I now sell online. I also illustrate them digitally. And it's just a real labor of love for me. It's something that I take a lot of personal satisfaction from. And it's something I'm going to pursue more as I get into this journey.
That's awesome to hear, and I like to hear more about the books and how you get into this journey. And obviously, your background in creative writing is something that I like, because I kind of see that similar journey where writing about this stuff really helps, at least me, to understand it more, right? To put it into your mind in a more organized way. That at least that's how I got it. But first, I want to kind of hear is like, what made you, how did you find Stoicism, and why did you say like this is it? What was that moment for you?
A business associate, another business owner, forwarded me an email from Ryan Holiday's Daily Stoic newsletter, and he said, "I think that you might enjoy reading about Stoicism." And I actually set it aside for a little while and thought, I am not interested in philosophy at all. This wouldn't interest me. But when I went back to it several months later and really started reading about Stoicism, it it was amazing how fast it changed my life. It all really clicked for me. It was something that was immediately it immediately appealed to me. The simplicity of it, the timelessness of the advice, and how applicable it was to even our modern lives today. Thanks to the Daily Stoic, and I think Ryan Holiday's a terrific writer and also a terrific educator of about philosophy and Stoicism. I'm really thankful that he does what he does. But through the course of reading his books and later books in their original form by philosophers like, Marcus Aurelius and Seneca, Epictetus, I quickly was able to make a lot of positive changes to my life. I think Stoicism has a lot of factors to it, but at its core, there are really very simple things that you can use from Stoic philosophy to change your life pretty quickly.
Oh, that's great. And, it's really cool. I love how you said that you started just kind of taking notes and writing for yourself. And then those, that's what kind of became the books that you're producing now, which is exactly, you're taking a page out of Marcus Aurelius's book, right?
Yeah.
He wrote his meditations, he wrote in his journal, and now it's one of the most read Stoic texts out there. As far as like how it changed your life, could you, well, one, I guess, could you give us like kind of your simple definition of what Stoicism is?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot to Stoicism, and I think trying to boil it down to any simple one sentence description is ultimately doesn't do it justice. But if you had to describe what Stoicism was in a single sentence, I think it's basically living in the moment. It's accepting the things that you can't change, or even embracing the things that you can't change. It's finding opportunity in challenges, and it's also an important aspect of it that not a lot of people realize when they first start studying it is that it's helping other people for the common good, making humanity better, making our community better, being a good citizen of the world, so to speak. But those simple things really explain most of Stoicism.
Oh yeah, definitely. That's great. That's a really good definition. I like the way you hit those 3 points. And as someone who's discovered it and started to really practice it in the last couple of years, would you say that there was, what has been the biggest change from you for, Phil pre-Stoicism to Phil post-Stoicism?
Well, there are quite a few. I'm not going to say that Stoicism is completely the cause that I've found a little bit more happiness in life as I've got older. I think that maturing is part of that too. Learning more is part of that as well. But I've been able to reduce my own anxiety, reduce the negative reactions I have to my own emotions, step back and look at things more logically than I used to in the past. Separate myself from a lot of the emotion that hits us at first glance when we experience things as human beings, and also realizing that I'm allowed to not have an opinion on a lot of things. In our society today, it seems like everyone always wants us to take one side or the other and immediately have an opinion on every single thing that comes down the path. But I don't need to have an opinion about everything. Marcus Aurelius specifically wrote about this in his journals. Things outside of us aren't asking for our opinion on them. They can exist without our opinion being important to them. So allowing other things outside of us to upset us because of the judgments we make about them that was something that caused me a lot of strife personally in my life. And Stoicism has helped me realize that I don't necessarily have to have strong opinions about every single thing I see in the world, and I don't have to make immediate judgments. It's hard to do in today's world. With social media and politics the way it is, everyone wants to immediately know, whose team are you on? What tribe are you in? What do you think about this guy or that girl? It's tough to teach yourself to not immediately have an opinion about things, but I think it's important too when it comes to inner peace, tranquility, and really embracing the world.
And that's also part of that, like the attention-seeking thing of social media, right? If you don't have an opinion, you're not being heard and you're not being seen. So that kind of pushes people to share their opinion and even stronger language. Make sure that you are maybe provocative. Otherwise, you just blend into everybody else. And Stoicism kind of moves away from that, right? As you said, you don't have to necessarily share your opinion. You can have it, right? But no one necessarily needs to hear about it as long as you feel good about it. And I think that's a wonderful trait of Stoicism as well. So I love that, those parts and, the emotional part and allowing yourself to just, to take that pause, right? To just take a moment and not have to react directly. And I wanted to ask him, because we get asked this as well, at least people ask me, is like, what is this kind of specific examples that you notice that this stuff works? Like, for example, I had it with a coworker and I read this quote by Marcus Aurelius, and I realized like, I need to change my end of the game and not get frustrated by him, but I need to learn to deal better with him. So that was one of the specific examples that I had. And what would be like an exact, if you have them, right? If like you have a moment where he's like, hey, this really works. This is something that I can really apply to my life.
Yeah, absolutely. There are plenty of examples I could give you, but one that immediately comes to mind is the realization that I can be equally happy if I choose to be, regardless of where I am or what my surroundings are. I used to be a person who thought that happiness was something that I would eventually find, on an exotic journey somewhere or in another place far away, or in an adventure that I have yet to embark on. But reading Stoicism, Marcus Aurelius specifically, but also Seneca and Epictetus to a lesser degree, made me realize that it's not the place that you're in that you derive happiness from. It's the state of mind you're in. And I mean, travel's great. It's terrific to travel the world. If you're able to afford buying a better house or putting yourself in a better place, that's fine. But you can be just as happy wherever you are if you allow yourself to look around for the beauty in the place that you are. I think that I've learned to look at the world from the viewpoint that my judgments have a lot more to do with how beautiful the world around me is, rather than my surroundings. And you really can be happy wherever you go. I think that it was Socrates who told one of his friends once, who was complaining that he had traveled a lot and was still wasn't happy. Socrates told him, well, I absolutely believe that you're still unhappy because you took yourself with you. You're taking yourself everywhere you go, everywhere you travel, every experience you have. And ultimately, you're viewing those places from your own mindset, from your own judgments. And it's a lot easier to change your own mind about your surroundings and your circumstances than it is to change those surroundings. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And that was one of the quotes that changed. Like, I love to travel, and we've done Brendan as well. Brendan lives in Panama. I just came back I actually went to him, a few months ago, and this year twice. And that quote was one of the things that really changed. It's kind of a similar quote by Seneca. He's like, you wonder your travels do you no good while you saddle with the very thing that you're trying to get away from, and like yourself, right? That made me question, like, why do I travel? So I feel like it's part of me, of who I am. But I like that example. I like that a lot, right? And that's what people kind of ask, like, what does this practically do to me in this philosophy? And then how do you use that in your day-to-day life? Like, how do you transition from that example into the things that you do? How do you feel that in your day-to-day life?
Well, I'm definitely not some kind of always placid, calm master of Stoicism. I'll tell you that. I still have plenty of moments every day, especially with having a lot of young kids at home. A lot of moments where I'll get frustrated, or my emotions might get the better of me. But I think it's important to remember that Stoicism isn't about getting rid of emotions. it's about identifying them for what they are, taking a step back and not letting those initial emotions that all human beings have take control of our reason and our actions. Stoicism has helped me, at the very least, identify a lot of initial reactions that I have that are negative for me and people around me, and to not act on those initial emotions as quickly as I used to give myself a couple seconds to breathe, look at that initial reaction, and just as Epictetus wrote, ask it, what are you? Let's figure out what you really are. If you take time to do that, when you do it consistently, then you start to identify a lot of those initial reactions for what they are, and you're able to deal with them better and be easier to hang out with when it comes to socializing with other people.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. And one of the aspects, and I think we're kind of touching on it a little bit here and there, but one of the aspects of Stoicism that was, I guess maybe transformative for me was the idea of like kind of accountability. That at the end of the day, like you said, you can, happiness is internal. It's not external. It's not once you reach this place or buy this thing or accomplish this goal. It's internal. You can be happy here. But for me, it started, I started as an entrepreneur, and I remember being frustrated by people that wouldn't necessarily pull through or always give me the work product that I expected. And I remember being bothered by that. And then as Stoicism started to fold itself into my life a little bit more, it was more of like, okay, well, maybe it's on me, for my instruction needs to be better, or the way I ask the question needs to be better. And that has really like released a lot of those pressures and those kind of like annoyances and aggravations. As an entrepreneur yourself, is there any specific aspects of Stoicism that you utilize in your kind of day-to-day life as an entrepreneur?
Yeah. And being an entrepreneur, there are plenty of opportunities to practice Stoicism. Building something from the ground up that needs to be optimized so that you can take care of your entire family and your employees and make sure that things are running smoothly. That lends itself to overactive imaginations, worrying, anxiety about things that might happen in the future, constantly thinking about what you might have done wrong or obsessing over it, looking at numbers and daily sales and things like that. Stoicism has really helped me become a more effective entrepreneur because it's let me worry less about the future. And the reason I worry less about the future is because I can no longer think of any situation, even some of the worst situations when it comes to business and entrepreneurship that could happen that I couldn't handle with the tools that I already have. I think it was Marcus Aurelius who wrote, "Don't worry about the future because you will face whatever comes." I'm paraphrasing. You'll face whatever comes using the exact same tools that you have used in the past to face problems and emergencies. But I think Stoicism is particularly well suited for entrepreneurs, people in business, because of the unique amounts of stress, the unique amounts of uncertainty when it comes to what's going to happen one year to the next. And you really need to be able to deal with those situations and plan in advance with a calm mindset, with an analytical mindset, and not let initial emotions and worries get the better of it.
Oh, I love that. I love this, what you said too about the uncertainty and that being, because I never, I guess, put it into quite those words, but I mean, that's what Stoicism has done, is helped me with that, especially when it comes to entrepreneurship, dealing with those kind of uncertain times. And I always love this idea too. And I think it was Marcus as well saying, one quote or idea that I lean on a lot is like, if it's humanly possible, then you can do it too. If someone else has done it, and that's of course, as you've seen in the entrepreneur world, if I see someone else do it, if I see someone else create a successful website and sell a product, well, then I can create a successful website and sell a product.
That's exactly right. You're exactly right. That's a terrific quote from Marcus Aurelius, and it's something that I think about often as well. If there are other human beings in the world who have been able to do certain things, I mean, short of I mean, I'm never going to be a gold medalist in the Olympics or anything. But if another person has, within the limits of your own time and effort, if another person has done something, then you too can do it, because it's humanly possible. And as I've gotten to know more people in e-commerce, in the entrepreneurial space, I've also become a lot more comfortable about dealing with emergencies or negative situations, because I've seen other people who I admire go through those worst case scenarios, and I've seen them come out on the other side just fine, sometimes better. In fact, challenges as an entrepreneur sometimes are what we need to grow the business, to make it better than it already was, to optimize it. And that applies to life too. We don't really go anywhere as human beings if we don't have challenges, if we don't have things to overcome or learn how to tackle. But it definitely applies to being an entrepreneur, and it applies to everyone else in the world as well. Welcome challenges. They teach you how to be better. They train you for the future. And was it Epictetus who said, "What am I to say when I'm faced with a challenge, with a hardship? I was training for this. I was preparing for this." And I look at challenges, or I try to remind myself to look at challenges as opportunities to train myself and prepare myself to get better, and to practice some form of virtue, whether it's patience or endurance. You can always find some way to practice a virtue and make yourself better with every challenge.
Yeah, those are, and the obstacle is the way, right? That's that famous book.
Oh man, what a great book too. I mean,
I have to be honest, like Ryan Holiday, I'm not a big, because it feels, I'm from Europe. It feels very American, the example. So I'm just kind of struggling with it. But I appreciate, as you said, what he did for Stoicism, right?
Well, I have to say that, so when it comes to Ryan Holiday, I'm very thankful that he introduced so many people to Stoicism in the first place. I honestly wouldn't have learned about it if it hadn't been for his marketing talent and his ability to introduce ancient philosophy in a palatable way for modern audiences. But I think he's especially good at telling other people's stories in a way to point out the unique human strengths and virtues that they showed, that we can also apply to our own lives. He's just a terrific, I don't want to say biographer, because a lot of the stories he writes about famous people from the past are more like vignettes or snippets. But I love how he's able to tell the stories of people who overcame great odds and practice the different virtues in a way that makes us excited and want to apply those same examples to our own lives. He's pretty unequal when it comes to that, I think.
Oh, he does do a great job. Like, I just, for a European, it's sometimes difficult to connect to these, to the examples that he gives. But I appreciate this as well as what he did, and as well, like, as we go over those obstacles, I wanted to, and you mentioned the virtues. Like, everybody has these specific virtues that they kind of struggle with. For me, it's temperance, with food and with drinking and all that stuff. And I wanted to see in your daily life and as we also look from what the Stoics say themselves, that this is a continuous journey, like you mentioned at the beginning as well. Like, we're on this journey, we're growing. What are the obstacles and maybe what is the virtue that you really feel like you need to work on more for yourself?
Well, I need to work on all of them, and I always will for the rest of my life. I think it's a continual journey. Before we talk about that, though, it's probably a good idea to quickly explain for anyone who's watching what in Stoicism the word virtue means and what the virtues are. And I want to touch on that just because I don't usually write or refer to the virtues in my own work. And that's because I think that the word itself is a little bit antiquated. I think a lot of people have an immediate reaction to the word virtue or virtuous that makes them think about self-righteousness or almost a religious aspect of the philosophy, but that's not it at all. And virtue and being virtuous in Stoicism and to the ancient Stoics was very different than what the modern reader might might think about when they hear the word virtue. Virtue in Stoicism, the virtues in Stoicism are those qualities which allow us to be closest to our own human nature. And I don't want to get too technical or into the weeds. I rarely do this in my own writing, but I do think it's important. The ancient Stoics thought that we are happiest and most content and most productive when we are acting as our nature calls for. In other words, how we were made, how we were evolved, and those things that we uniquely can do well when compared to other creatures on Earth. For instance, I recently read an essay from Seneca on this, and it's a really profound way to think about it. For instance, a horse's highest virtue is its ability to run faster than any other animal. We tend to judge racing horses by how quickly they run, by that specific aspect of their physiology, by that specific gift they have that they were evolved for. Look at any other kind of an animal. They all have their own specific things that they're better at than a lot of the other animals in the world. Human beings, our specific thing that we are better at than any other creature in the world is reason, using our beautiful minds that were evolved over thousands of generations to reason and use intellect and look at the world and also look at our own judgments about the world, our own reactions to things in the world, and decide whether we're being rational or not. So our unique nature that really can showcase what human beings are capable of is the use of reason. And all of the virtues, when we refer to those in Stoicism, have to do with utilizing that unique good that we have, that unique power that we have, using our reason. So the Stoics talked about a few different kinds of virtue. You might need to remind me what all of them are, but I think it's justice, wisdom. You referred to, Benny, what did you say? Temperance, which
moderation.
Yeah, moderation. And then one more that's common, courage. All four of those things, to the ancient Stoics and how they organized their own philosophy and referred to different human emotions, all four of those different virtues give us examples of how we can use situations to be closer to our own nature and to utilize the thing that is the unique and greatest good in humans, which is our use of reason, our beautiful minds that have evolved to handle challenges. And I won't go further into it. I don't want to sound like a college professor or anything. And I rarely talk about this kind of thing, but I do think it's important. So that's what the virtues are. They let us, when we practice them, they let us become closer to our nature. And that's another word that Stoics use a lot, nature, what's natural to us, what's in our nature. That doesn't mean that not referring to, being out in the woods or anything like that. Although I like the outdoors, I like the nature. But when Stoics talk about human nature and doing what comes natural to us or what's in our nature, what they mean is those practices, those actions which reflect what we do better than any other creature, and that's using our mind and our reason.
Oh, excellent. Well,
yeah, I'm sorry, you weren't expecting that long, drawn out education on reason and the greatest good in creatures.
No, that's great. Hey, it's great.
I've got to send you guys that specific. I've got to send you guys that specific part, a letter from Seneca. That's in his, the famous collections of letters to his friend. That he specifically talks about that concept that all creatures should be judged by what they do the best when compared to everything else. That's what we should be ultimately judged by, whether or not we're living up to our nature and making sure that we're acting as the pinnacle of what we're able to do. And for human beings, that's reason. For a horse, it's running. For other animals, it's other different things.
Yeah. Oh, no, that's great. We appreciate the explanation, Phil. And like, you know, as many times as I can hear anyone talk about the virtues, it's always great to hear someone else talk about it. Because I think as you can insert other ways, like you say in a completely different way than I would have said it, and that's another perspective for me. So I appreciate that.
Well, you spell it link, so that's good.
Yeah. But as we talk about this, you know, kind of what is the thing that you do, Phil, better than most? What is the skill or virtue that you have that you feel like is your kind of thing that you give to the whole, to the community?
Well, I think that there are things that I'm less bad at than others. I
the Stoic answer.
Yeah, for a long time, I was, I think for most of my life and my career, I was way too much of a generalist, and that, you know, I was pretty good at a bunch of stuff, but not the best at any single thing. And I think that I probably would have benefited from focusing on a narrower set of, you know, hobbies, skills, and interests that I could become the best at, rather than sort of being, you know, generally good at everything. I'm focusing a lot right now on my writing, and in addition to my writing, experimenting with ways to present these ideas and this writing to people that's easily accessible and fun for average people who don't know anything about philosophy to digest and appreciate. I think that there are a lot of people out there who, when they're given these ideas from Stoicism, these concepts from Stoicism, if you present it as philosophy, they immediately will not have an interest in it, and rightly so. We don't teach our children much about philosophy, and it's not something that has a lot of importance in our society. But I try to present these concepts, none of which are unique or original to me. I mean, I'm not coming up with any new ideas, but I'm trying to present them in ways that it reaches an audience that maybe a lot of other books or writing or Stoic experiences wouldn't. I think there are a lot of people out there who deserve to learn about Stoic tactics, Stoic thinking. And they haven't yet because they haven't been presented those ideas in a way that really clicks with them. And I think I'm getting pretty good at presenting those ideas in a way that it opens up a larger audience to at least understand the basics of how Stoic thinking can make us happier and healthier and more productive and just better human beings.
Okay. Yeah, and that's, you know, I've really enjoyed reading your book, the little book of Stoic quotes. That's been fantastic for me to read. I do pick it up every morning and read one or two. So thank you for sending that. That's been a joy. And I do love how you kind of take that, because you present the quote and then you kind of break it down a little bit. And I even love, every once in a while you throw in like little stories. They're stories about these creatures and how they're interacting with one another.
The Stoic fables, yeah.
Oh, so yes. No, that's great. Yeah, so the Stoic fables that you throw in there, I think that's a really wonderful way to kind of illustrate some of these points that can be, maybe if we just described them not with, without the fables, without the characters, they would be a bit dry. But I think the way you do it and present it is a very digestible way. How did you come up with that idea of kind of presenting these ideas less as, hey, let's just talk about it, and more as a story? What gave you that thought?
That's because I had one audience when I was writing the fables, and also when I was writing everything that you've read in the little book of Stoic quotes, and that audience was me. You refer to the fables. I actually wrote a series of I think 45 different Stoic fables, which I published on. They're published for free on my website, stoicsimple.com. And the reason I wrote the fables was really twofold. Number one, I'm a writer and an illustrator. I love writing stories. I love creating art, and that was a way for me to sort of flex those narrative muscles to work on my writing and get back up to speed to being a writer again. And number two, I will admit I need concepts to be explained in a very simple way for me to grasp them and fully understand them. I'm not putting myself down. I've embraced that aspect of myself, but in order to really understand a philosophical concept, I need to be able to break it down into the easiest pieces possible, into the simplest form possible, and writing fables that illustrate those specific concepts, really simple, short fables that show that concept and how it applies to our lives, helped me understand it more. I started with a notebook of specific concepts in Stoicism, examples of Stoic thinking that I wanted to understand better. And I was able to sit on a park bench every morning and just write out ideas for very short fables that illustrate how those concepts work and how they can make us happier. It was a lot of fun for me. I mean, I could do that all day long. I really enjoy it. I didn't ultimately publish a physical copy of those Stoic fables that I wrote, but I did use them in the little book of Stoic quotes, and they're interspersed throughout it. I didn't want it to be just a book on with nothing but Stoic fables, but I think they have an important part in making Stoicism more understandable for people, and showing simple examples of how we can use Stoic thinking in our lives. And they're fun to read. They're fun to read to my kids too.
Yeah, that's great. No, and I really think, I mean, I wouldn't say, you need it explained in a simple way. I mean, I believe that you don't truly understand something unless you can explain it in a simple way. Unless you can teach it to someone very simply, you don't understand what it is.
That's a great way to put it. That's a much better way to put it than I did. But you're exactly right. If you can't explain it in a simple way, then you don't have a full appreciation for how to apply it to your own life. And writing those Stoic fables and working on my own journaling about Stoic ideas was my way of breaking those things down into simple explanations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like as a teacher myself, like that's where I feel like I've worked as a teacher, so that's why it's nice to have interaction with people. Like sometimes I talk about this stuff and with friends and family, and some of them they just tell me, Benny, this is just, I'm not interested. And I was like, okay, that's fine. But other people, they do want to know. And then you can test, like, do they get it? Do I need to simplify it more? And can I do that? So I like that as well. And what was what made you decide to publish this writing, right? What was it that you felt like, oh, I need to put this out there, like the fables and the other books that you wrote, right? You have the Urban Enchiridion, or the A Dog Who Follows Gladly, right? And the Stoic Horse and the Stable Cat. What made you feel like I want to put this out there instead of keeping it for yourself?
Yeah, that's a good question. I after finding myself spending a lot of time reading about Stoic philosophy and writing about it myself, it's not that I wanted to sell something that I think has some unique perspective on the world and is going to massively improve everybody's life. But I do want to make sure that the responsibilities I have to my own family, that I'm not spending a lot of my own time and effort on stuff that isn't going to at least pay for itself. So putting these journals, these writings, these illustrations, these books out there, it helps me not only present a simple way of understanding Stoicism to an audience that's enjoying it, but it also helps me justify all the time that I spend on learning Stoicism. I mean, I could easily, go out in the woods and sit under a tree and just read about Stoicism all the time and write in my notebook, and never publish a thing. But I don't have that luxury, and a lot of writers and entrepreneurs don't have that luxury. If there's something that they're working on, if they have a family to take care of, we don't have the luxury of working on stuff that's not at least going to pay for the time that it's using. So if I had never published anything at all, I would still be just as happy. I would still be just as improved myself because of the process. And my goal when I write isn't to sell anything. I don't have any goals. But publishing these has let me make a positive difference in other people's lives, and also make sure that I'm living up to my responsibilities as a father, as a husband, as a business owner for my employees.
Yeah. That's great. And that's a really good, oh man, I guess I need to justify a whole bunch of years of studying Stoicism now. But no, that's great.
You are. I don't want to, I'm not implying that justifying it only equates to, how much money are you making on this? But I do want to make sure that anything I'm giving a significant chunk of my life to is at least that I'm at least breaking even on it when it comes to taking care of my family and my employees. I can't afford to waste too much time on navel gazing and and daydreaming.
Yeah,
I'd like to. I easily could do it, but I can't anymore.
No, that's very practical, and Stoics are definitely practical folks. So I like that. And then bringing up, your as a role, the other roles that you have as a husband and a father. How has Stoicism and the practice of Stoicism impacted you in those areas?
We have 4 kids. 3 of them are very young, a 2-year-old, a 5-year-old, a 6-year-old. And it is the greatest adventure I've ever had and the most difficult adventure that I've ever had. And not unique to me. Any parent of young children will tell you the same thing. Stoicism to a certain degree is, as I referred to earlier, it's helped me become a little bit calmer. I'm able to identify negative emotions a little bit more quickly and calm myself and try to think logically. Although that's not always easy to do with little ones. It's the situation. You know how it is when you have little kids. But I think also in terms of putting myself in my children's shoes, and trying to understand how they're conceptualizing the world, understanding the world, and what their judgments are of the situation that I'm also having a judgment of, what their impressions are. That's helped me a lot. That's something that has helped a lot in Stoicism from Stoicism when it comes to I think dealing better with my kids and being a better father to them. I think the concept that Socrates put forth, and I mention Socrates a lot because he's considered the father of all philosophy, and a lot of Stoicism is evolved from Socrates' original teachings. But Socrates said that no one does wrong willingly. No one willingly does wrong. No one does what they think is the wrong thing to do. That there's a reason why everyone around us has the reaction or does the things that they're doing, and they aren't doing it because they think, oh, this is the wrong thing to do. They're having those reactions and they're doing what they do because they think that's what they have to do, or they haven't learned yet what the right thing is to do. And that concept helps a lot when dealing with little kids. When one of my kids has an emotional outburst, trying to put myself in their shoes, why do they think they're doing what they have to do right now? Or what's their mindset? How are they judging this situation? And in a lot of cases with young children, the simple fact of the matter is that they haven't yet learned the skill set to step back and look at those initial emotions and wrestle back control with their own reason or their own minds from those really visceral emotions that we have as all human beings. So it's helped me a lot there. It's taught me a lot about the psychology of, anger and anxiety and stuff that has honestly plagued me my whole life and that will always be a struggle for me. But at the very least, I can step back and apply Stoic thinking to some of these emotions and look at them logically and take a second to think about how I can redirect things and make a better choice.
Yeah, that idea of, it's so cool because, the Stoics do focus so much on kind of the community and the whole and thinking of others, but I've never put it in those words exactly where it actually helps you to step into the shoes of someone else.
Yeah, and that's that
kind of feel what they feel.
And that's such an important part of Stoicism that even when I started studying Stoicism, that it didn't really occur to me how important that aspect of Stoicism is. not for more than a year of reading about Stoicism did I really get, that aha moment where, a very important part of this, if not the most important part, is being a good human being, and that means helping other people around us. Marcus Aurelius frequently references, that things like what's good for the bee should be good for the hive. That we have a community to make better. That we should treat on other people in a way that reflects that we know that they always do what they think they should be doing. It's our responsibility to help other people. That's one of the things that makes human beings great. Our communities, our relationships with other people. That's why we are where we are. And we need to celebrate that and further it by being good, helpful human beings ourselves. And that sounds real, like, a few years ago, if you had told me something like that, I would have kind of rolled my eyes and, okay, whatever. But it's really a super important part of Stoicism, and it has been an important part of becoming a happier person myself too.
And I think that's, those are great things. And also, like, as you said, we need to be ready for this message at the right time. As you said, maturing, right? We grow into this role. And at one point just say, now, if you would have given me the text about the Stoics 10, 15 years ago when I was still partying it up in college, I would have said, what's happening here, right? At least I would have read them, but I would not have really taken it to action. Well, now I was ready and I was like, this is what I need. And that's why I think it is important to have that moment. And I also think that's why it's important to have as many voices sharing these messages and their different takes, because you don't know whose voice or words are kind of things that will trigger you. Like, for example, Ryan Holiday or someone else, or maybe people listening to this podcast, someone listens is like, wow, this is really helping people live a better life. I think that's important to have. And also, like, when you mentioned, like, to be able to step in other people's shoes, I also think it's important to sometimes step out of our own shoes and to become kind of an observer, right? And I don't know if you've practiced that. And so for me, for example, I become more an observer for myself. So if I'm in a high emotional moment, as it's like, let's take a step back. Let's see what's really going on. How has that affected you? And maybe as a parent as well, to look at your children. It's like, oh, they're doing this. Why are they doing this? But why am I doing what I'm doing?
That's such a great point, and I'm so glad you brought that up. It's almost a daily exercise for me that has helped me practice Stoic thinking, and that has really improved my life. To tell myself, remember that I'm the observer. I'm not my emotions. I'm the observer of my emotions. I'm the one who decides which emotions to allow to affect my life and people around me, and which emotions to temper and control. I am not my body. I am the observer of my body, of my physical sensations, of my pain. I'm the observer, and I get to decide which pains that I will look at as transitory and which pains I'm going to look at as debilitating, and form my reactions accordingly. I am not my circumstances. I'm the observer of my circumstances, and I get to decide how those circumstances are going to be interpreted and how they're going to affect my life. But that's such a great way to put it. Thinking about yourself as the observer. It calms me. It makes me think more stoically, and I think it's a terrific exercise to do.
Yeah, the Stoicism as there's something came to mind that I just jotted down, is Stoicism as an education through observation. Like, and that's what I feel like.
That's a great way to put it. That's a terrific.
Yeah, because that's what it is. I mean, you're constantly, like, for me, I my kind of journey through Stoicism, I called myself a passive Stoic for the first 2 or 3 years, because I just listened to the Daily Stoic podcast. I didn't do anything else. I didn't read anything. I didn't apply it. I just listened and kind of absorbed. I guess maybe I was applying it, but not, purposefully. And then I started actually kind of journaling and being more of an observer and taking the day-to-day challenges and pulling them apart and figuring out, okay, why did I do this? What made me react that way? How do I want to deal with this in the future a little bit better? And it's really just an education about myself. But through that, I was definitely someone that in the past, like you brought up earlier, like I was all focused on me. I need to make sure and look after myself. I need to look after my family, my mom, whatever, and now it's much more about like, okay, what can I give to the world? What can I give away? How can I help this person? Because all of that is what ultimately kind of pours back into me. And I just think that this Stoicism has given me this whole new perspective on how I view the world and how I view human interaction and things like that. And it's such a powerful thing. And I'm so happy that obviously we're here having these conversations, because I think that's where this growth happens, is hearing different people talk about it, because it is important to have those different conversations, because we're all unique in our backgrounds and our perspectives, and it's blending them all together that I think kind of brings out the gold nuggets of life, and in sharing our perspectives is where this comes out too. So,
man, that's a great way. That's just a great way to put it, man. Very well said. What were can I ask you guys a question? So when I've noticed it, certainly noticed it in myself. I've noticed it in other people who start to understand Stoicism. When you started learning about Stoicism and some of these concepts, were you the same as me, in that you wanted to tell everybody, hey, look at this, look, I had no idea that these kind of concepts, that these mindsets could make you so happy. You want to show everybody, you want to kind of, as Epictetus said, you're the sheep who eats the grass and then vomits it up for everybody else to look at. And that's specifically something that Epictetus writes about. He says, when you first learn about philosophy, make sure that you don't go spewing it all out to everybody else before you can let your mind digest it. And he gives the example of a sheep. He says, does a sheep go and eat grass and then go to the shepherd and vomit up the grass to show him that he ate a good meal? No, the sheep digests the grass and grows wool and becomes stronger, and that's how you can tell that he was intaking this good stuff. He shouldn't be the sheep that vomits it all out. But I was definitely at least in the first year, the sheep who wanted to vomit this all out to everybody. I was so excited about learning about philosophy. And did you guys find a similar experience when you first started learning about it? Benny, I know you said that you wanted to share it with everybody. I found myself like oversharing. I had to remind myself, okay, when we go in here to this group or this dinner, I don't tell everybody about Stoic philosophy, because they're not going to understand what you're talking about, and they don't want to hear it.
Oh yeah, most definitely. And I've been humbled many times, like first I started my blog, but it's also part of my journey, because I've always struggled with criticism. So I was like, where best to find criticism than to go online and post my stuff on these forums, especially the Stoic forums. People can be quite, not as stoical as you would imagine online, So part of it was that, but I also started in the Twitter spaces real quickly, the X spaces. And I was like, oh yeah, I know all of this stuff. Let me talk about this. I've got to share my opinion. And then you hear people being, a little bit further down the road, and it's like, well, that wasn't really true. And I was like, well, you got to tweak this. And I was like, oh, wait a minute, I don't know as much as I think. And that's a really humbling lesson. For me, that was one of the biggest things to know. And what that made me do is I started studying more. So if I posted some blog post on Facebook and someone picked it apart, I was like, let me just study and get this done. So for me, it was actually, it sped up the journey a little bit, because I just started delving into what's really going on and where can I find the information. So I think I needed that to be humbled, right? To say
you said you were looking for criticism. You went and tried to find. That's like a sort of like a voluntary discomfort. You were practicing this Stoic technique of voluntary discomfort, putting yourself through discomforts in order to make yourself immune to them and make yourself stronger in the face of them. So you just got all the criticism out of the way and tried to get yourself used to people's negative reactions.
It was an interesting journey. Like I remember the first times that people, and again, there's some people on the Stoic forums, they can get really nitpicky, and they can attack you pretty, harshly, and then just go rants and so all that stuff. And at the beginning, I would just be up all night, reading and just trying to come up with the best reply. And now I'm just like, this is your problem, that you're stumbling over one word and all that stuff.
I've been there. I mean, it's been many years since I've, given a shit about what other people think. But I've definitely been there. I will say, though, I noticed that when it comes to interacting with online communities about anything, particularly philosophy, that any kind of a forum or community where people don't have to use their real names or likenesses, like, I don't know, Reddit or anything like that, that invites a lot more negative reactions and criticism from people. So don't take it personally. Don't let it get to you.
I've stopped doing that a long time.
You've tested yourself. You've tested yourself. Stop looking at the negative comments. Don't go looking for them anymore. You do a great job.
I actually, what I do now, and this is again taking a step back, I look at the negative comments and I try to see what is useful for me in them. Like, I ask myself, am I wrong here? Is there some truth in there? And if I look at it long enough, and I don't take a negative, I just look at them as kind of a way to instruct myself. So if someone gives me, if someone's like, hey, your hair is bad, it's like, I look at the mirror, it's like, is it really? Oh, if I like it, then it's fine. If not, it's like, yeah, it's messed up. So that's what I do with the critique or the criticism. I don't see it as negative or positive. I just see it as a way for me to get some feedback from the world and say, okay, what am I doing right? Or how do I like it? And what do I feel about it?
I understand that. Yeah, there's some validity in like looking at other people's criticisms as a way to point out your own shortcomings and improve yourself. But I think you got to be careful in that a lot of the stuff that we're talking about presenting to the world when it comes to philosophy or other things, these are things that I think the people who are criticizing you might not be as educated on as you are. They might not understand what you're trying to convey to them. I don't mean they're stupid. I mean, they just have different experiences. So I wouldn't always let other people's criticism drive you to look for faults in yourself. I do try, when there's criticism about my own writing, I do try to use that to find ways that I can more simply explain things so that every audience can at least appreciate how they can apply it to their lives. But I think that seeking out criticisms to identify your own flaws is good up to a degree. But you don't want to get into the point where you're doing it as a way to beat yourself up. But I admire you for your strength in presenting ideas and being bold enough to listen to the criticism.
And I don't know how you feel about that with your books, but I felt like I had these things I needed to get out there. And part of it, like, because I had these ideas in my head, and as long as I wrote them down, and that's why I wrote the blog as well, because it allowed me to, or forced me to make it more coherent. Because if I write for myself, I jump from one point to the next, and it's just a massive, chaos. But it helped me to kind of put the thoughts, and also felt calm to just know that I have them out there and I don't have to worry about forgetting them. But how did you feel about when you wrote your books, and what did that do to you in that process of learning and letting go? I think that for me, that was really powerful, but what was it for you?
Well, writing is, I suspect that I don't write like many authors write. Writing to me is almost, it's almost like doing a Rubik's Cube or something else that might relax you, and, putting together a jigsaw puzzle. The way that I write, because of the responsibilities I have at home with all the little kids and things that I do, I often don't have time to sit at a computer and write, have a lot of quiet time to sit and look at a document and, plan this out. I use my cell phone a lot to write. The entire book, the little book of Stoic quotes, I actually wrote it with my thumbs on my cell phone, in Google Docs. And I'm not ashamed to say that. When I first started publishing work about Stoicism, I didn't admit it. I was a little bit hesitant to say, I do most of this writing on my cell phone, but it's part of what the ancient Stoics taught us, to look at our circumstances that life has given us and make the best of it and find opportunities in the framework that we're given. And some of my best writing, I think, has been done while I'm giving a baby a bottle, with my thumb, or in the grocery store line, waiting to check out. But for me, writing in the way that I write the way that my mind works, and that is in very short, digestible snippets. I rarely have stories or articles that are longer than a few pages, just because I lose my train of thought if I don't keep it that short. And I constantly rework my writing just to make it feel to make it feel better, to make it feel more concise. So I might write something, even blog posts, even articles I've published. I don't think there's anything wrong with going back and when you notice something you want to change, making edits to it. That's one of the great things about modern technology and the internet and blogs is that you can go back and edit that. And it's nobody's business if you decide to go and, polish up and change and improve something that you've written in the past. You can't do that with a book if it's in the hands of a million people. But online you can, and I frequently do that. I am constantly editing my notes and my articles and my journals. I hope that helps.
Absolutely. No, that's
once you hit publish, just because you hit publish doesn't mean you can't go back and change things. And believe me, most people aren't sitting and staring at it, and they're not going to notice anyway.
Yeah. No, that's great. And I'm glad, it really just sounds like you were practicing Stoicism. They have the Stoics tell us you don't wait till everything's perfect. You just get started. And, if it's writing on a phone because that's what you can do, then that's what you're going to do. And we're grateful that you were able to do that and give us these books because they are, I do love the way that, how you package the material and how you present it, I think is unique and very special. So appreciate that. But if you could, just as we start to wrap up here, share with the listeners where they can find your writings. And also, if you have anything else you're working on as an up and coming book, we'd love to hear about
that too. They can find my stuff online. It's easy to find. One Stoic writer who I think that anyone listening should look into, and I didn't mention him, is I think he's been on your show. It's Donald Robertson. And I at least wanted to make sure to mention that he I think is one of the greatest Stoics, not only of modern times but of the ages as well. His ability to communicate Stoicism to a modern audience in a way that isn't just understandable but also comforting. I that's the only way I can describe his writing. I mean, he's venturing more into serious academic writing and biographies of people like Socrates and Marcus Aurelius. But Donald Robertson's writing was some of the early education I had on Stoicism. And I don't know, I probably read half a dozen books by him, but every single one of them it's like he's there speaking calmly with you. And he makes you feel as though he's listening and that he is your personal Stoic therapist. I just love everything that he writes. And he has a real way with literary writing as well. The chapter at the end of How to Think Like a Stoic Emperor, where he envisions, Marcus Aurelius on his deathbed and what was going through his mind as he was coming to the end of his life. It's not just great writing about Stoicism; it's some of the best writing I've ever read. I mean, very moving stuff. So anybody who's interested in Stoicism, I mentioned Ryan Holiday. His stuff's terrific and covers a wide range of different topics and human experiences. But Donald Robertson's stuff is it's some of the best ways to learn about Stoicism, and it will really connect with you. So go buy his books before you buy mine. But once you buy all of his, grab one of mine if you can.
Can mix it up, that we have like a Stoic reading list and on like how for beginners. And we should add you there as well, with your quote book. And I think as you were explaining the last chapter of How to Think Like a Roman Emperor, I had the same experience. I was just reading it, and you're like in these other chapters, and suddenly I was like, "Wait a minute, what's happening here?" Like this is great. I just felt like pulled in, and we've had.
I got to admit, I've got to admit, and I'm sorry for going over, but part of me almost feels guilty even talking about my own book, because I think it's so important that these real people, these real Stoic, I don't want to say sages, but these real Stoic writers who are doing really important work, they need to have more eyes on them as well. So the work they're doing is very important because they're spreading the ideas of Stoicism, of Stoic thinking, and being happier, more productive human beings to a way bigger audience than I am or the three of us are. So I just want to make sure that they get their due and that we don't take their spotlight from them because their stuff's great, man. I wish everybody would read, Donald Robertson's stuff and, Ryan Holiday's Daily Stoic and Courage is Calling. I'm reading Courage is Calling by Ryan Holiday. It's all great stuff, man. There's lots of existing modern Stoic works out there that everyone should take a look at before they start delving into brand new authors.
Yeah, I know. We did a recent episode on that as well, where we shared all the books like Massimo Pigliucci, William Irvine, and the likes of that.
William Irvine is great too, and I know you're trying to wrap up, but I mean, so I read him early on too, and I reached out to him. He's actually he's a college professor here in Ohio. He may have retired recently, but reached out to him, emailed him about my early thoughts about Stoicism, my early ignorant thoughts about Stoicism. He was so patient, returned my emails, and went back and forth with me a couple times. And everybody in the Stoic community who I've reached out to is just incredibly friendly and incredibly helpful, and also patient with entry level Stoics like me.
Yeah, no, we've had Donald Robertson join us on our spaces when we were doing the Marcus Aurelius, the meditations. We were doing them line by line on the Saturday space that we do. We're doing Seneca right now at the moment, and he came on and he was like there, and I think he felt like the patience that he had to kind of put up with.
Yeah, his voice too, like everything about him. Just I know he's written that it hasn't always been that way for him, but he's just such a calming presence, and he's such a great ambassador for Stoic thinking. I wish that our country or the United Nations would make some sort of an ambassador for logical thinking, and just appoint him to that post and let him go out and talk about how great Stoic thinking is. And he's just a great ambassador for the philosophy. You guys are going to have to cut me off because I'm gonna keep talking and talking.
No, it's quite all right, Phil. We can do this as long as we need to. But no, I completely agree. I think that's a wonderful explanation of Donald. He's a good friend of the show, and I admire him greatly because of how he presents Stoicism and how he brings in this CBT aspect to it. I think is really beautiful. And yeah, like you said, he's just, I think, a great ambassador for Stoicism. But I also believe that Stoicism is so young and the niche is so new that there is like there's so much freshness here. There's so much like liveliness here in the Stoicism world. And I feel like it kind of got like it's, Ryan Holiday really brought it to the forefront, back in maybe the early 2000s. And now it's kind of having like another sort of resurgence. And you're seeing these, us and you and other people start to come in. It's not just one or two guys now. It's the whole gambit of people. And I think it's, like I said before, it's so nice to have that freshness where not that it was bad before when it was just dominated by one or two people, but to have it spread out more just adds those additional perspectives, adds those additional things, just makes it a much more richer philosophy. And I think that is the beauty of Stoicism, is it really is a philosophy of the people. It's a practical philosophy. It's one that's done day to day. It's not in theory, we live it in our lives every day. So, yeah, it's been great just to talk with you, Phil. This has been a wonderful conversation, and I really appreciate you taking time to share your wisdom with us. And I just want to let one more. Go ahead.
I would like to give, because I think Phil is also a great Stoic writer, and I don't think we've touched it. He kind of dodged it by focusing on Donald Robertson. But where can we find you? I want you to highlight that. If people want to look for you, where can they find you?
Just go to Google and type in Stoic Simple, or type in Little Book of Stoic Quotes, and you'll get lots of results. I'm pretty good at SEO and marketing and all that kind of stuff. You'll find me. If you want to find me online, I guarantee you'll find me. Just go to Google, or you can go directly to my site. You go to stoicsimple.com, but it's easy to find. My books are on Amazon too now, so if people want to look for them, they can find them there.
I
got to be honest with you guys, and this is gonna sound nuts, but I don't know how many books I don't sit and watch like how many books I've sold, and all the money that I make with the book sales, I don't like write myself a check. I put it right back into advertising for the books or development for new projects with the Stoic Simple company and brand. And it's not something that I'm like that I actually see a monetary profit from. So I don't pay too close attention to how many you're selling. I need to make sure that the inventory is where it needs to be to satisfy the people that are ordering the books, but I don't think too much about the money and the number of books that are sold. So if I sound a little ignorant when it comes to the business side of things, it's because I just don't care. It's not something that's important to me.
Well, it's spoken like a true Stoic, Phil. I love it. So we're happy that you came on the podcast today, though, and thank you for your time. And check out stoicsimple.com and Phil's
there you go
book of Stoic quotes because it's very fascinating and it's a great easy read. So would definitely recommend it. But appreciate you, Phil.
Yeah, thanks, guys. And I'm gonna go. I get to go mow the lawn now. I'm gonna go home and mow the lawn before I have to take my 5-year-old to jiu-jitsu class. So that's my adventure for the rest of the day.
Hey, sounds fantastic. Good luck with that.
Thanks, guys.
That's great. Thanks, Phil.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Via Stoica podcast. If you have enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing, rating, and leaving a review. Your feedback will help us reach more like-minded people on the journey to self-improvement. If you want to get in touch with us or find more information, you can go to viastoica.com, your one-stop platform for all things Stoicism and living better. And remember, virtue is the only good.